Hey everybody, thanks for coming to another episode of My Angular Story. I'm your host, Aaron Frost, and today we have as our guest, Addo. Can you, Addo, well, go ahead and take a second to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are.
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Kukic, and I have been working with Angular for the last 6-7 years. Currently, I work at Auth0 as a senior developer advocate engineer. So my day-to-day is pretty much focused on getting out into the developer community, talking to developers about authentication, access management, securing their applications, securing their Angular applications is one of my big focuses. And yeah, I've been a developer for about 15 years now, working on both the front end, the back end. Angular was actually my big AngularJS back in 2013 was my big first foray into single page applications, and I have not looked back.
This episode is sponsored by Sentry.io. Recently, I came across a great tool for tracking and monitoring problems in my apps. Then I asked them if they wanted to sponsor the show and allow me to share my experience with you. Sentry provides a terrific interface for keeping track of what's going on with my app. It also tracks releases so I can tell if what I deployed makes things better or worse. They give full stack traces and as much information as possible about the situation when the error occurred to help you track down the errors. Plus, one thing I love, you can customize the context provided by Sentry. So, if you're looking for specific information about the request, you can provide it. It automatically scrubs passwords and secure information, and you can customize the scrubbing as well. Finally, it has a user feedback system built in that you can use to get information from your users. Oh, and I also love that they support open source to the point where they actually open sourced Sentry if you want to self-host it. Use the code devchat at Sentry.io to get 2 months free on Sentry's small plan. That's code devchat at Sentry.io.
You started programming pretty young then, because you're not, I mean, if you've been doing this for 15 years, then you started young, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm turning 30 next week, actually.
Yeah.
And my first programming experience, the first time I got paid for it was when I was 15 years old. I've always been kind of a nerdy guy, always working with computers, always messing around in that regard. So I had a mutual friend come to me and ask me, hey, you're good with computers. Can you build me a website for my store? He was running one of those, it was called Mail Plus. So it was like a reseller of postage stamps and just your regular, carrier needs. And so I was like, yeah, of course I could build you a website. And I, of course, I had never built a website, was never paid for it, but I'm like, I could figure this out. So I downloaded Dreamweaver. Of course, this was 15 years ago, and found a template off the internet and just started messing with it, learned a whole lot. It was a big learning experience, but launched the site in a couple of weeks. It was just a landing page with a couple of subsequent pages for, their location, hours, services offered. And that kind of kicked off my professional development and programming career. And then since then, I actually had my own freelancing company that I ran for a number of years with a partner, and things just kind of snowballed from there. And then around 2011 was when I actually started working for different companies as a full-time employee, just because the money was better. Freelancing is great, but sometimes you need the steady paycheck.
Yeah, totally. So you have, people listening can't see this, you have a wolf walking around behind you in your house. What kind of dog is that?
So that is a Siberian Husky.
Okay.
And so yeah, they are very closely linked. So they're one of the breeds that's very similar. They look very wolf-like. They're about as far from a wolf as they can be. And Klaus, he is, when I got him as a puppy, they told me Huskies tend to be, 40 to 45 pounds max. And this guy is pushing 65 pounds. He's one of the biggest Huskies in the world, but he's a gentle sweetheart that just loves pets and just loves to lounge around.
Yeah, he looks pretty chill. He looks super, just kind of hanging out with you there. He's your buddy?
Yep. Oh yeah, I love him.
You work from home every day?
Most of the time. So, as my role as a dev advocate, I spend a fair amount of time traveling. going to conferences, going to meetups. So, but other than that, when I'm not on the road, I'm at home hanging out with Klaus.
So who takes care of Klaus while you're gone?
Typically my brother. So he lives just a couple minutes away. So he'll come in and stay over, and he has a dog that he'll bring over, and they'll just play and hang out.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What kind of dog does your brother have?
He has so he was a rescue. So we don't know the exact breed.
Exact. Yeah.
But he has a bit of everything in him, and he's just the best.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm trying to. So what are some of the things what are some of the harder things you've been solving with Angular lately? And what are the things that make Angular uniquely suited for what you're working on?
Sure. That is a very, very good question. When it comes to the latest Angular release, one of the big things that I've been focusing on for the last 2 years is figuring out how do we authenticate. How do we make the authentication story within Angular applications as simple as it can be? So that this is challenging for and
it's more like saying as least complicated, because it's hard to say simple, but maybe the least complicated possible.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, cool.
So making authentication as less complicated, or the least complicated as it can be, because it's such a challenging aspect. Even if you're building a traditional web application, there's still all sorts of considerations you have to take into account, all sorts of vulnerabilities to worry about.
Yeah.
But when you move your entire application, all of the code to the front end, where it can be easily read by anybody, even malicious actors, then you have a whole set of other problems to worry about.
Yeah.
And this isn't just specific to Angular, but since Angular has been my focus over the last couple of years, just trying to make that user experience, developer experience, actually easier or simpler, less complicated, has been the big challenge. And luckily, I've had the opportunity to work with Kim Maida, who's one of my colleagues here at Auth0, and the stuff that she's done. With the quick start, for example, to get it running, has been very, very impressive.
The thing that I believe most about top-notch developers is that they're constantly learning. Whether you're out watching videos, whether you're reading blog posts or books, whether you're out writing open source software, you're always out there learning how to be a better developer. And my friends at Thinkster and I teamed up, and we put together a show called the Dev Ed Podcast. You can find it at devedpodcast.com. It's run by Joe Eames, who you might know from JavaScript Jabber, Adventures in Angular, and Views on Vue. And they have terrific conversations about what it means to become a better developer, to learn how to do development, and the ways that you can learn. So if you're looking for inspiration and ideas about how you can do better and learn better as a developer, then go check out the Dev Ed Podcast.
Do you guys all that work with Kim, do you guys all hold her in as high esteem as the rest of us in the community? She's pretty fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I worked with Kim even before she joined Auth0. She was actually a contractor for a company that prior to Auth0, I had worked for a healthcare startup, and this was back in 2013, 2014, and we had been running this very old traditional ASP.NET C# stack. And we decided we needed to modernize, we needed modern features. And I was put in charge of picking a front-end framework to kind of replace that. So I was evaluating Knockout, I was evaluating Ember, and then I stumbled upon AngularJS. And I mean, it was there was no doubt that this was going to be the framework we go with. I built a proof of concept over the weekend. The two-way data binding at the time was mind-blowing. Just being able to quickly iterate, quickly prototype was so refreshing, made our life so much easier. And then as we were scaling up that platform, building it more and more, we realized we needed some additional developers, and Kim's company was actually the one that we went with. So I had a chance to work with her during the AngularJS days.
Oh yeah.
And those were fun, but they were also very challenging, very challenging at times.
Yeah, different times, weren't they? That's cool. Man, every chance I get to work with the Auth0 team, I think you guys are fantastic. I mean, ever since I started working with Angular, Auth0 has been a thing, and then a couple of friends and I, we started ng-Conf, and pretty much the first year Auth0 showed up and was like, "Hey, we want to help," and we're like, "Oh yeah, cool." And so Auth0 has been with us, been around. I've been surrounded by it pretty much regularly for the last, I don't know, coming up on 7 years now. So, and your team's great. I mean, you, Sam, Kim, I know Martin moved to the United States recently. I mean, you guys have a fantastic team. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has always kind of kept me at Auth0 and kept me energized is the way that Auth0 approaches the developer community. Like we just want to do right by developers. Whether it's our quick starts, whether it's our evangelists, our advocates going out into the field and helping people, whether they're using Auth0 or not. Most of the talk that I give have very little to do actually with implementing Auth0. It's more talking about, how do you implement secure authentication? How do you implement secure identity management into your applications? And if you want to use Auth0 to make it a little bit easier on you, great. If not, here's at least what you need to know so that you can you could do it properly.
yeah.
And having that support from the company where it's like, you don't have to pitch Auth0 at every single talk or, be a salesman. Just go out there and help developers is such a breath of fresh air. And, just really encouraging to me as a developer.
Yeah. So let's do this real quick. We are going to do a podcast with like an Auth podcast, right? Like we're going to be able to guilt Sam and Kim to take a break from their schedule and come on with us.
I will get them whenever we can find a time.
Yeah.
We'll get the three of us, and we would love to do that. I think that would be very, very interesting. I think it would be cool to just talk about Auth, because Auth, authentication, identity management, it's not something that people, wake up in the morning and read the latest blog post about because it's so interesting and so refreshing. But it's something that every application developer needs to understand, needs to know how to do, and needs to know how to do it properly. Otherwise, they'll end up on the front page of, Hacker News or the New York Times.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing you want is to be the developer responsible for the CSO or the CTO ending up on Hacker News, right? Like that's, yep. I mean, if that's not one of your worst nightmares, you should just read some of those articles. I read those and I'm like, man, every developer involved had good intentions, right? And that's what's so tough about it. You really do need to focus on it. So I actually, me and you met for the first time, coincidentally that we're doing this podcast. We met for the first time Saturday.
Yeah.
Right? Saturday morning.
At the GD Summit.
The GD Summit, yeah. And so what did you think about the GD Summit? Like specifically, what did you think about that keynote?
The keynote was absolutely amazing. Having an actual astronaut, tell us about life in space, tell us about, the challenges he went through, and just the overall message of, be persistent, be determined, and go. One of the things that really resonated with me there was, a lot of people have great ideas, and everybody wants to do something great, but having a great idea only gets you so far. You have to follow through. You have to put in the work. Otherwise, your ideas are just that, ideas.
Yeah.
So that keynote was amazing. Just hearing about the spacewalk, the launching into space. Just it was very, very amazing.
Yeah, he did such a great job at sharing vivid details. Like he talked about some space debris hitting the space station, and like he ducked as he told the story. So like he had a lot of detail as he told stories, and he talked about where he took that selfie. Remember the picture of his selfie?
Uh-huh.
And at first you're looking at the picture like, that's not a selfie, it's just a bird's eye view. But really, when you look at it, like, oh, that is a selfie. And that is a wonky, like, to think that you're just sitting out there free floating in space on the top of the antenna. That's anyway. I thought it was pretty awesome. I walked away super inspired
Mhm.
by his name's Garrett Reisman. He's some sort of advisor at SpaceX. I can't remember what his title was.
It's like the director of Space Command, or is like director of space communication or something up there. But yeah, he's working with SpaceX right now. They showed the video of SpaceX landing the Falcon Heavy rockets, and I've seen that video before, but every single time I see it, I still get shivers down my spine. It's just such an amazing feat to
Yeah, it's
to
crazy.
witness.
No, it was cool. I felt lucky that the GDEs got a chance to hear an actual astronaut. So yeah. Adventures in Angular is a devchat.tv production made in partnership with Hero Devs. Hero Devs is a group of Angular experts who can help your team code like true developer heroes. If your team needs an Angular expert, reach out to Aaron at hero.dev today. So, if anyone, are you down to be open on, like, hit up on Twitter if anyone has any questions about Auth or
absolutely.
anything else Angular?
Anything Angular, anything identity management related. I am a really big proponent of the Go programming language. So if you have Go questions or are interested in learning more about Go, feel free to hit me up. My Twitter handle is @KukicAdo, KUKICADO. And happy to talk to any developers, either offer advice, help you debug an issue, or whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm still reminiscing about this space talk. Like just how, kind of the motion around his talk is still kind of bouncing around my head, and I'm having a hard time focusing on it. So if anyone has any questions, sounds like Twitter's the best place to get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, I think Twitter is the place for devs. You could also find me on LinkedIn and Facebook at the same handle, or you could always email me at ado@auth0.com. Happy to connect that way as well. I'm always open to talk to developers, to aspiring developers, to whoever wants to talk.
Yeah, cool. So let's move on to the picks section. So I have kind of I'm not actually sure when this is going out, this podcast with me and you. So hopefully by the time it goes out, this is a safe thing to say. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to take a risk here. So the world just experienced its first all RxJS conference, and it was in Vegas. It was called RxJS Live. I thought it was awesome. So we're getting ready to have our second, though. So there's a community member, and I'm trying to remember her name. Her name is Jen Ashley, and Jen, she's Coder in Hills on Twitter. She's going to organize RxJS Live London.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's going to be an RxJS Live in London. Dates, not sure on yet, but it's pretty close to that ng-Conf timeframe. So it'll be good. It'll be good time for people to kind of get out there and learn about RxJS and Angular. So anyway, I'm gonna pick RxJS Live London. That's my pick.
That's amazing. I hope there's an open CFP for that, because I will be sending a bunch of CFPs to it.
Yeah.
My pick would be as always my favorite conference, ng-Conf. It honestly, my very first developer conference was way back in 2015. It was actually NG Vegas.
Oh, cool.
The first time that you guys did it, and that one totally kicked off it inspired me so much to actually want to get out there and talk to developers. That was a huge event for me. And coincidentally, the first conference that I actually got to speak at was ng-Vikings in Finland.
Oh, cool.
So Angular has always had a special place in my heart. And then ng-Conf 2016 was the first time I attended, and I think it was the first time you guys did it, and that just blew my mind. It was so well organized. The community left such a positive impression, and I'm hoping to be back next year, either as an attendee or a speaker. Well,
yeah, seriously. I'm excited for it too, and I'm glad that's funny. NG Vegas is this conference we did one time that we probably should have kept doing, and it was small though, right?
It was fairly
250 people there. But it had a big impact for those of us that was there. So I'm glad you picked that. It was a fun conference.
Yeah, I remember the only feedback that I heard from people at the conference was they wish it wasn't, because it was at Lake Las Vegas, so it was a little bit outside of Vegas. So people, they wanted to be closer to all the Vegas action. But I hope you guys, we had RxJS live, which was a lot of fun. I didn't get to attend this year, but I had a couple of friends. I think Sam, Kim, and Kapehe, they were there as speakers. So they had all great things to say about it, and I'm hoping we bring more developer conferences to Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so that location, that's actually where React Conf is now. So it's a solid venue. But yeah, anyway, all right. Well, Otto, thanks for coming on. Everyone, if you want to get a hold of him, it's Kukic Otto, KUKICAVO on Twitter. Yep. Okay, reach out to Otto. Ask him any questions. Get your Go questions to him too. Thanks for coming on. Taking time out of your day to come be a guest. Let the Angular community get to know you better.
Awesome. And thank you for having me, Aaron. This was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, no, same. And then to the listeners, I'll just say thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.